I am not recording all of this conversation. I don't think needs recording.
Okay, just
I recorded.
the meeting, it should have minutes, I guess, is what I'm saying, and if we're not, it just dawned on me that maybe
Yeah,
nobody's doing it.
Judy's taking minutes for us.
Yeah.
too.
All right, appreciate it, thank you.
And Carolyn's chatting in the chat box. If anybody's, you want to just talk, Carolyn?
Oh, well, yeah, I can. I think you mentioned, right, the property plan, as I'm looking at this proposal, in some ways it's not specifically detailed, so maybe I'm looking through eyes that have seen people do some of this work before. The property plan would be saying you want worship space, you want teaching space, you want office space, you want a coffee bar, you want these things. This is the kind of space that will meet your needs and your mission, and you want to put those together. How is that visible within what we have right now? And what's the cost of that, sustaining that versus sharing with another church versus building something brand new versus moving into a movie theater, who knows? So that's the kind of property discussion and property plan that I'm seeing through that. Discover and establish key community partnerships, knowing who's around and whose vision in the community blends with ours. This is where we're going to want to hear that they're making clear contacts and detailed conversations with people and helping us figure out partnerships, not just happy partnerships and friendly, but detailed, looking after each other for benefit of both, developing those kind of partnerships that will lead to sustainable ministry in the future. Because half of this or a big part of this is about us being sustainable.
What I would
I'm not
find
sure-
very helpful for them to do is help us figure out a way for us to stay, like when we talk about on our current premises, help us figure out if it's possible for us to stay in our current premises while all of this occurs.
Mhm. Okay,
Like,
so that would be that
Without knowing, that's not an option. Like to stay in our current premises, we know is a lot of renovation, a lot of upgrade, a lot of stuff for which we have no money. And how many years down the road before we would have money? Is that even an option to stay in our current building? Like it's nice to talk about as though we'd like to be there, but the reality is, can we be there?
You
Yeah.
mean like, until we have something new, like in the
Yeah.
temporary? Yeah.
How do we fund any of it? How do we get to that new without selling the property?
Do you
That
mean
would
like
be-
in the interim, how do we stay at 454 Rebecca for say 5 years or 7 years or 3 years? Is that what you mean?
No,
Judy?
if one of the options is doing something at 454 Rebecca, how is that possible?
Oh,
Because from where I sit, it's not possible.
So
And
from what
shouldn't
I
even be
my
allowed.
understanding was, go ahead.
it would be a new development either way, either on that property or not on that property.
I understand it would be a new development, but if it's on this property, we have no money. If we sell the property,
Right.
we have money, right? So it's how with no money are we able to stay in this property for 5 years and develop a new something in this property?
So, but so I think, are we selling regardless, whether we leave or whether we stay, we're selling it regardless? Like, if we
don't
stay,
know.
it means we are partnering with other people and creating a development on that property. Right? Like, that's what I understood.
That's what I want to be clear on. Like, I don't want to go down a path that then we turn around and say this is not a possible path. And I personally don't understand how it would all work.
So what if, as an example, Trinity and St. John's, come around and immediately say, guys, we're in. You know what's great? We'll sell our stuff. Here's this money. St. Paul's, which will become the Oakville United Church. Let's pour the money into this. This is a great space. It's centrally located. Like, is that something that, like, does that kick around anyone's head? That we're like the central place, and instead of we're selling and they're giving up their ship and they're giving up their ship, and we're all gonna end up on the North Service Road somewhere?
The problem is they're not ready to commit at all. So, I mean, it's a huge, I mean, we can't, it's hard to base our decisions on what they might do.
So when you, and I just want to really understand this. So when you say they're not committed at all,
They've both communicated in the past week that they're hesitating and they're not where we are yet. That doesn't mean that, like, one of Trinity's concerns was definitely financial. And so as soon as they responded back to say that that wasn't possible, I responded back to them saying, hey, we've talked about possibly talking to the region to foot part of the bill on this. So please don't put money as your top reason for hanging back. But at that moment, that's from both of them, that they're not ready to step up to the plate.
They haven't
right?
even
But
started
when it
talking
came
to
for,
the
when it came to us, and we were like, looking, like, I gotta admit, I was the last guy who was invited to the party to understand what was going on. I looked around and went, are we selling this place? And then once I realized that, oh, I think we have to. Like, I think that took me 5 days. I don't know if this could take a while, but I think the others could join. They might have the same, I'm not going to call it epiphany or whatever it was, but it was a realization that, oh, geez, this is exactly where we are.
Depending on where they are financially, if they start talking to their congregations, that it would probably take.
Hi, Judy.
Can I say three things quick? Number one,
Before Judy comes back.
and Dave joins us because he's in the waiting room.
Yes.
Did we have a sense that our people were leaning towards one or maybe two of those options, and we could eliminate a couple of them? I think that would be helpful for the conversation with Dave. I think that we should ask Dave and Kendra how long and what the timeline would look like in continuing to invite Trinity and St. John's, and at what point that's going to hold us back. And I can't remember the third thing, but that's good enough.
My impression of the table talks wasn't so much to have them select an option. It was just to see how they were with the options. And I think they're at the stage where they're prepared to go all the way. So 1, 2, or 3 is irrelevant. They're prepared to, as long as they can stay as a congregation and maintain some important things, they're prepared to go all the way to number 3. So I don't think that's an important item for the congregation. I think it's more like what is reasonable and what isn't. And I think we already know that doing the bottom third of the property is not going to probably give us anything that's going to keep us going. So I don't really see that as an option.
Shall I let him in?
Yeah, just I think we need to hear what he has to say and help us understand what he's put together. I will declare right now, I don't think we got our value out of the session 1, and I don't think there was visibility through the process about what was going on. And so for me to jump into 30 grand and go to the next step, I've got to hear some pretty different stuff out of them and some commitment to be very, very visible for us, what's going on, and stop hiding the process, because that's how I felt it was.
Right. I will say that their strong point has not been reports and letting, a very succinct and explicit reporting what they're doing. So we may want to add that to this contract, right? To say that this is what's expected from them.
Well, I mean, I read over the contract again, and I don't even like the way it's worded. It's right up front. They say they're an independent contractor, and then they keep calling us a partner with who?
Yeah.
We don't have another partner in this. We have a partner and an independent contractor. That's not a partnership. They're an
They should be
independent. contractor.
meeting- For this kind of money, they should be meeting with us every week.
Like, I just
to
have
give us a
concerns
quick
about,
update.
I have concerns about the process, because we're responsible for spending $10,000 and I just can't tell people where it went.
Right.
Because I can't, if I read what they gave to us, there wasn't $10,000 worth of value in there. I just, like, I'm having trouble. So,
Okay. Okay, that makes sense to have like a detailed idea of where the money went. That's,
yeah,
yeah, practical.
I mean, it went into a hole and out came this report to sell the land. I mean, gee, that was, we could have got that probably out of any real estate agent that walked in the door,
Okay.
quite frankly.
Yeah.
So I'm having troubles with 30 grand and my future on the line. So
Okay.
maybe no one else feels that way. That's fine. That's where I am. So
I am with you.
I think many of us are.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we ready for him?
Ready.
All right. Hi, Dave.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Good. Welcome.
got our empty chair, couch there.
Yeah, Carolyn sent me a note. She'll be right back.
Nice.
So where do we want to start?
It's a great question. How has the meeting gone so far?
Good. We were kind of just talking about the proposal that you sent and have a bit of feedback and questions around it. So
Yeah, I think in some ways it's probably the best place to start. I can present a little bit about it, but if you guys have already been talking, I'm happy just to field questions.
Well, I think basically we didn't understand really what the output would be, the deliverable.
Yeah,
I actually think, Dave,
How much
I
further
actually think it
along?
would be helpful for you to walk us through the proposal,
Yep,
kind of
yep,
talk
yep.
through it in your own, like,
my own language.
know,
It's perfect.
yeah, like how would you
Yep.
walk us through the proposal, just so that we're all clear on
Absolutely.
exactly how you see it. I think that would be a good kind of baseline for us.
I love it. Yeah, so what, in kind of leaving that lifting the lid phase, you're really set out to discern what a hypothesis could be for a path forward. So what are the recommendations that we see could be helpful? We kind of set off with this path of let's sever the one parcel, let's generate some income from that to work back on the deferred maintenance on the building. And we quickly realized that that would not leave you a long-term sustainable future. So in severing that piece of land, it's an irregular site. There's no development play later on in the future, and it doesn't even come close to meeting the development costs. And then establishing a community hub requires more work and dollars than what that would have given you. So we kind of came in with that assumption, shifted to another path around, is the site developable? Is there interest in that? What income is generated from that? And there's a couple options around what development looks like. Do you want to stay on the site or develop the whole site and relocate to another location? So those are the two things that we're weighing out right now. And moving into the next phase, I'm just going to go at a high level and then I can dive into specifics. But going into the next phase, we need to make a decision around what are your usage requirements? What do you want? Where do you want to meet? Do you want a development as part of the new development potential that comes? Or do you want to meet on a new site? And then what does that mean? And is there still a desire for a community hub in that site? So there's still some work needing to be done before we're able to go to an RFP or an expression of interest to any development partners that maybe that we would say have a conscience, really care about development from a community perspective, not just highest and best use. So for us to present an RFP, which to me is the final outcome, getting to a joint venture agreement with you and a development partner is the final outcome. So the outcome is getting you to that place. And then within that is also talking through Community Hub, because it's not just good enough to have some dollars generated because we're going to do a development on the site, but what's your missional opportunity and what does that look like? So think a Community Hub is still a great option. What does that look like? Once we know that, then we can do a bit deeper dive into who those partners could be, what the interest is for those partners, what type of space do they require, and then how can you create an ecosystem of love and care in the neighborhood around what that Community Hub could be. So we want to move forward into Community Hub and a development potential, but we need there's some work left to be done to get to that final end.
So what specifically would you be doing? Like what would
Yeah,
your first
so-
month look like?
Yeah, so I'll break it down into, I'll go over the A, B, and C. So this isn't, again, like as much formulaic in science as it is art. You kind of open up one thing and then it leads you to over here and then you go over here. Like what we did in phase one when someone offered a proposal on the development. So that's not something we anticipated. Curveballs kind of come from all sides. So we're moving through A, B, and C, not systematically. There's parts of each one that we're doing in each at any moment. So the missional piece is we really do want to see you establish an integration of what is the church objectives and vision into the property plan. So that's an important first step. What are your dreams and aspirations? And then what does that look like in terms of the building in which you're in? And then who are those potential partnerships? Who are the stakeholders? Who are those that'll be interested in working with you on a Community Hub model? And we want to link that to the church objectives, meaning that if you have a ministry that is, it's important to do justice and inclusion, engage with Black and Indigenous, those are things that you would want to incorporate into your partnership. So if you have someone who's hyper conservative, that's probably not the best fit in a partnership. So finding those that fit to your mission and vision so that you can actually work together on what that ecosystem is. We can't do the missional one until the property piece has some answers to it. So that brings us to B, and this is all around a deeper dive into the Community Hub aspect. So the deliverable on this is what's market rent in Oakville? What does it look like in the space in which you have? What do rental agreements look like? How can we generate income that's below market, but also probably more than what you're going to generate or what you're generating right now just by renting the space? So really creating a financial model around a Community Hub. C is, and this is the one we probably would work on first. So again, it's not in order of what we're going to work on. It's order of themes. So this is the pre-development work. And this is really getting us to a place where we can go out to market with your property. So that's ensuring that we've got all our ducks in a row within assess the zoning and make sure that we've got some sort of pro forma in terms of the numbers. There is a evaluation on the property itself, the value that is important for you guys to get done. So those are some pre-development things that we need to do. And then we want a coordinated expression of interest. We can put that out as wide as you want us to. Our recommendation is that we don't do that. What happens with sending it too wide is you have developers who may not have a track record that come in with a way higher number. Yet the project often doesn't get completed. So we would rather go to developers that really have a proven track record. Also, Oakville is a challenge. So they need to have some understanding of Oakville and the ways in which the city functions in Oakville. It's different than any other context. So if you have a developer who comes in from some other region, may not have the expertise in handling Oakville. So we want to make sure that we go to developers that we trust can actually complete the project, because the goal for us is a completed project. So once we have an idea about what the RFP would look like, we would help write the RFP and then be able to go to trusted developers with that. So as you can see, it's like we're working on some community hub stuff, but we really need to know where you're going to be located before we can do that, which means we really need to understand what is happening within the property and the land itself. So we're going to do it all, but it's not going to happen systematically from A to.
But some of it could happen concurrently.
Exactly. Yes.
Does not have to be linear.
Yep. So we would start with C because we think that's the most important. But to do C, we need to go back to A and go, what are your needs? What do you need in terms of space and building? Do you want, out of the recommendations that we gave, do you want a development on the whole site and relocate? Do you want to do a third of the site and keep 2/3? Or do you want to do 2/3 of the site, keep a third, but reanimate that? So it really is a question around how much space do you need? What's the footprint that you really need as a faith community? What kind of space? And once that gets answered, then we can move down to C and begin to craft what that pre-development work can look like so that we're ready to create an RFP.
I have a question. So I'm wondering, I know I'm hearing you say about doing, kind of making those decisions first, that's whether we want to move or do
Correct.
it, but I think it's hard to make those decisions if we
Yes.
don't know what it looks like moving forward. Who are our partners? What do they want? So how do we make that kind of decision without knowing what future looks like? You know what I mean? Like who's going to be with us or what their needs are?
Yeah, and I think the question with that is what comes first.
Mm-hmm.
If you do development on the whole site and collaborate or partner with another congregation, does that change who your partners are? If you develop, if you say we want to stay, then I think we can start that stakeholder, those stakeholder conversations with who currently is in the building. So who is currently using the building? What needs do they have? And what long-term aspirations, goals, dreams do they have for the community? So we can definitely have those conversations. But the question is, are we developing the whole site? Or does St. Paul's is there a desire for you to stay with a reconfigured space?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's to stay with a reconfigured space, then let's talk to those community stakeholders and go, what kind of space do you want? Which is a really fun conversation because now you're not building something that no one wants. It's let's actually build it with you in mind. So we just want to make sure that we're going to stakeholders with the right question. And right now we're not quite sure what that question is.
Right.
I think that we cannot answer those questions by ourselves. That you
Yeah.
can't be doing your work over here and then we
Right.
have meetings over here. They have
Right.
to be joint meetings because
Absolutely.
it's not effective what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Our congregation is game for anything. They would like to remain as a congregation. But if you ask them
Right.
what their desires are, what they would see, you'll get all
Yep.
over the map type of things.
And our primary goal for you is a sustainable future,
Yes.
both financially and missionally.
Mm-hmm.
It's both. And we want to link those. We don't want the mission to move forward without, again, there is an opportunity for a financial return. your property is a asset that we can leverage, but we also don't want to get a financial return, but then not reimagine what mission is. And I think both of those simultaneously are working together, and we wanted those to work together in what next is.
We're all speechless.
I love it. So the primary outcome for us is for you to have a development project on the site in some form or fashion that generates income to reimagine the space with a community hub.
Mhm.
If I could be as succinct as that, that's the outcome. And
And
we have a
sorry.
ribbon cutting ceremony, and we're able to go, we got a new space. St. Paul's is going in a new direction. And here are the partners and the ways in which we're building community together. That's what we want to see.
And that could be either on the existing site or elsewhere.
Correct.
Right? Like that's kind of the.
Yep.
I view everything as like a tree diagram. It's a decision tree, right? Like it's, so, you know, all things being, you know, if we were to go back to the congregation and say, all things being equal, would you prefer to remain on this site and for us to be able to move forward and create something on this existing site?
Yep.
And, you know, the majority of people, you know, we've said, you know, we had consultation with them. Essentially what came out of that was nobody would stand in the way of what is best for St. Paul's to move forward
Right.
and remain, you know, as a group, whether that's here or elsewhere. But if
Yeah.
you were given the choice, what would you prefer, or what would you,
Yeah.
where would you
Same
see
here.
us? And if the answer came back, we would prefer, or we, you know, ultimately we would love a future where we can do that on our existing site, then we're talking about creating some, you know, some sort of a, there's still a hub like concept,
Correct.
where we find the right types of partners,
Yep.
to create the right types of services needed potentially in that geographic area as a consideration, whereas elsewhere that might look different, based on it being locationally in a different place, right? Like, I will say that this is a bit of an aha moment for me. I based on and this is my feedback to the group as well as to you, Dave.
Yes.
The initial report that we got back that kind of spelled out the options, it was not necessarily clear to me, and I would be interested to hear how others feel about this. It was not necessarily clear to me that the creation of a community hub was still part of this whole equation. It was as if we had shifted away from that potential altogether. I think what I read and what I heard in that initial proposal was that was not something that was seen as needed. We didn't need any more of those types of spaces in Oakville, whether that was in our location or elsewhere, and that we would be better off just selling the property and then moving ourselves somewhere else and reforming ourselves as a faith congregation. So I have to say that the fact that the community hub aspect is still, for lack of a better term, in play, makes me feel somewhat better than I did going into this conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know how others feel about
No,
that.
that's-
Like, is
that's
that
really
am
helpful,
I
Jeff.
am I out of line in suggesting that like this is kind of like that's not necessarily how I read things initially, or that's not the perception that I got initially. I don't know. Maybe I just missed something.
You have to
initially.
talk about too, what is a community hub? Like all the community centers, we're not talking about another community center.
No, but we're talking, I
Talking about
guess we're
something very
talking about, you know, partnering with organizations
organizations
to
who
offer needed services in the
need below market
community that align with our mission and our goals and our values. And, you know, just to be very you know,
Yep.
to use something that's very specific, we are an affirming congregation. We would want to find partners that that align with those values. And so, you know, potentially offering something around that. You know, we're not talking about, you know, developing another version of the Y that's next door, right? Like I get
That's
that.
right.
We don't need basketball courts. In fact, we have a basketball court now, and it's not used for basketball. So anyways, I don't know where I'm going with this, just that
No, that's really good, Jeff. And one of
It's
the
just-
things that,
yeah.
just to
Sorry.
clarify, one of the things that in doing a very high level stakeholder interview, and it's specifically what sent us on this trajectory was meeting with the Community Foundation. And they were very opposed to someone else trying a community hub. They're like, we have multiple community hubs, don't need another one. And really what they were saying when we kind of got right into it is Oakville doesn't necessarily need more spaces for below market rent. We have lots of space. I don't know if that's true, but it is what the Community Foundation did report
Space
back.
for what?
Who
Space
is
for what?
sorry, this is ignorance on my part. Who is the Community Foundation? Who are they? Like, who is that?
Every city has a community foundation. So they are usually very much in the know in terms of what's going on in the neighborhood, in the community. And they are a foundation that grants dollars out for community impact. So they're big into community impact, seeing organizations given grants locally to help foster a local community. So they're often in the know, but the reality is that doesn't mean you can't have a community hub. It just means that there may be space, lots of space, other people trying to do this. It doesn't mean you can't. And we really see that it still is a missional value to have some form of community partnerships and community hub. What that also doesn't take into consideration is the relational investment that you've already made in the community. There are already partnerships in which you have. People are already meeting in the space. So it's kind of sifting out and go, who are they? How can we talk with them, engage with them, and find out what a best solution is around a hub model?
Do you ever
So
go
it's
to the
not saying
government?
no, it's that you're the only city that we've ever met with where they've said we have too much space.
But
So-
do you ever go to the government to say what services are lacking? Things that are on their list?
We do go to the municipality, yeah, and ask what services for sure.
Because it would seem to me that a hub that provided some of the missing services,
Yep,
which I think we have quite a few still in Oakville, whether
For
they
sure.
say we do or not, that's a different kind of community hub than,
well, and a community
Oh.
hub can emerge around a theme. We've seen it around arts, we've seen it on health and wellness, we've seen it around youth and seniors. So hubs can also be thematic, based on, again, on what that development project can look like. So we've seen hubs that are strictly around Black and Indigenous business owners and entrepreneurs. So there's uniqueness around how a hub can form based on the values that you carry and identities you carry as a congregation.
Is the town telling you you can't do this and you can't do that? Or are we not at that? Is that stage 2?
In terms of
Town
community
saying,
hub,
okay, you know what's not going in there? I'll tell you what's not going in there.
Right.
Tennis courts, because Oakville does not need tennis.
right.
Sorry, go.
What we're looking at is 2 options, so not tennis courts. We're looking at housing.
After
and-
you leave, there'll be a discussion on why I just said that, but
I love
anyhow.
I
I'm
love
just,
it.
it's more about the town saying,
Right.
we
So
might think
what
we
do
want
need
this,
to
and
do
the town's gonna
is
say,
be able
it
to
doesn't matter
go to
what you
the
want.
town. We do need to be able to go to the town with, we have looked at zoning. We have looked at limitations on height. You are in a residential neighborhood. You do have easy access. Like there's some things that are positive and some things that are negative. you're not going to get a 10-story building in there. That's what's true. So there's limitations on what the housing project could look like, based on what the city's going to do.
I
No
think
matter
a
what
housing
happens,
project in that neighborhood, if it was more than 1 story tall or 2-story talls, you would have great opposition from all the neighbors, and
you are going to get opposition no matter what
they
you do.
seem to fight things successfully in this town.
Yeah. So you need someone who is aware of that. And the developer right now who has put the proposal in is aware of that. And they're not going to come forward with a proposal unless they're pretty confident in
Is
what the
housing the
return
only
is.
need, though? Like, there's got to be more than housing. I know that there are services for seniors that are lacking in this town greatly.
It's not that housing is the
But-
only need, seniors housing. It's that there needs to be a generation of income to address the deferred maintenance on the current building. So that's what we need to, there's a big gap there that we need to address. So we feel that one of the only ways to address that gap is through a development opportunity on the site that generates income for you to address either the current building structure or dollars to go into a new building that can give you more of a sustainable future. So the current building is not able to, there cannot be enough bake sales to pay for what is required on the building itself. So we need some creative solutions to generate enough income for that. The sale of that one parcel, the residential kind of manse that used to be the manse, that did not generate enough income for that. So there does need to be a bigger development parcel at play to make the future look right.
Yeah, I think the sale of the manse could correct the maintenance issues, but there's no sustainability to it after the fact.
Right, it's a
It's just-
one-off.
Yeah,
It's a one-off. Yep.
I mean, it's and just to go back to that, the original severance and sale of the manse was to basically help with renovating the sanctuary. And that's the reason we started looking at it all over again, was that no longer seemed like a viable approach.
Right. Is that the most important space to renovate? And what about the other spaces? And yeah.
Yeah, it's we could fix a lot, but I still don't think it would be sustainable.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of churches do that, where they'll kind of sell parcels of it and then come to us and go, okay, we've blown through that money. Now what do we do? And we're going, well, now you're stuck because you haven't thought through this, again, a sustainable model that could really lead you into the future. And now you've gotten rid of the parts of the land that could actually be helpful for you. So I'm grateful that we didn't do it that way, that we kind of get to look at it with a different lens and allow for hopefully a long-term investment. And we, like, personally, I deeply value joint venture, where there is something in which you're keeping and hanging on to over the long term. You're putting the land asset in the agreement. The developer is putting in the development costs in the agreement, and you're receiving on the back end dollars, and that can be worked out on how and how those are divvied out. But there is something about a long-term investment in what I would like to see this be.
I think our biggest challenge will be getting to the long term.
Yeah.
In terms of zoning,
No, just surviving to the long.
surviving to the long. Yeah, that's something else I was just saying, if you have experts on site or all the rest, that if we don't have money within X number of years, we're not in existence anyway.
Right. And that's where, again, starting right now with getting to a point of going, okay, here's what we want to do. We want to develop 2/3 of the site. We're going to keep 1/3. We're going to reconfigure what that looks like for our congregation and a community hub that meets there during the week. It does not take a lot to create that RFP that goes out to market, that generates interest that you now get to look at. And, 5 people come back and go, here's what we want to do. And here's what we want to do. Here's what we want to do. And you're able to go, okay, here's now what we're voting on. Here's what we get to decide on. Because you have something actual, like you have something real before you. And there'll be some architectural drawings and renderings and ways in which you can visualize what you can imagine on the site. And once you sign that, obviously there's some legal and but you can get to that in not a long time. And as soon as you sign that land asset over, you're going to get kickbacks on what that is. So it doesn't need to be a really long time before you start to see some income.
And yes, your time frame for this particular phase was not that long.
Yeah, our time frame is a guess because we're
I
moving
know,
at
but
the
the last
speed
time
of
frame
you.
was off by 100%.
Right. Yeah,
Do we expect that again, or?
we're moving at the speed in which the congregation is willing to go.
So there, I don't know if this is following anything or not, but if there's other congregations who are kind of in our position
There's so
and
many.
they say, you know what's best? Let's just sell our stuff and move to St. Paul's and we call it the United Church of Oakville. Or, hey, why don't you all come to our place and we'll call it the United Church of Oakville. So there's that church that's not going to sell, but we're going to sell and they're going to
Yep.
sell and we're going to take some money. We're going to throw it into that place, or they're going to come to us and we're going to have all this money and we can fix up the gym. And like,
Yes.
does that fit into any of this, or how do we move forward with other congregations being in the same place as us, but we're here first?
I deeply want other congregations, as does Deborah, as does Carolyn in Oakville, to engage in this process. They have yet to engage.
You're not ready.
So it's challenging because you are also on a timeline. Now, the difference is you're aware of the timeline you're on, the crisis in which you're in, but also looking at, you guys have some energy. You've got some, like, now's the time to do the work, because I don't envision at all that you're moving into hospice care and are dying. I don't see that. There's a lot of other churches that I would say, no, you guys probably just need to sell. That is not your case. You are in a place where I think there's some energy left to really do something creative, create a narrative and a story that can be a sustainable ministry moving forward. I deeply believe that. So you at the same time have to move forward with who you are and what's best for you. Because if they continue to not own the state they're in and be willing to shift and change and reimagine who they are in the future, and you wait for that and they never get there, now you could be another year down the road that we're another year late, where you could have done this work now. So you're in that tough spot. How long do we wait for them to engage? And if they don't, we need to continue to move forward.
Mhm.
Is
The
there,
the other, I'll call it potentially slowing factor will be that sooner or later we have to engage the regional people seriously in the
Yep.
discussion, because we don't go anywhere without them going, yes.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and that doesn't look like it's, I would say that by the time we get to the end of this phase, we somehow have to fold them in.
Yeah, I would say at the end of this phase, you will have enough information,
Yeah.
pro forma, architectural render, like you'll have enough to go, here's what's on the table.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What-
Absolutely.
What's the first deliverable we'll get if we move forward from you guys? What will that look like? Are we looking at a report? Is it a meeting?
it's not a report. I think the first deliverable is this team working through, how do we make the decision on what we want in terms of space and land. So what footprint do we want to, what do we need? And do we want that here on the site we're on? Or do we want to engage and partner with another congregation?
But see, that one, you don't get an answer to that, because the answer is if we can stay on our existing space, that's everybody's choice. However, we're willing to go elsewhere if that's the better move. So we don't
Right.
need to go back and ask people again. that
No,
question.
but I think we do need from this team a decision that says, okay, let's move. If the most desirable is to stay, if that's A, let's say that's A. A is to stay. B, if the numbers don't match with A, then we're willing to move to B, which is consider relocating. I would say let's move through with A until we get a clear no. Again, until we get the numbers aren't working. No, it's not going to work. No, or you're not going to get the land you want. Like whatever the city says, there's no way I'm going to do that. Like let's move it through the cycles until we get a no. Then we bop over here, and that's the work that we do. So it's working through the cycles.
That makes sense.
And in working through the cycles, it's talking to the city. And again, but we want to make sure that when we talk to the city, it's not a half-baked idea. So like we have to get our ducks in a row so that when we talk to the city, we're actually showing up with something that looks like something they would actually want to engage in.
So if our decision is option A, that we want to
Yep.
stay on that land, our next thing then is to figure out our footprint. Like, what do we need?
Yeah,
We-
what's the
We want a
footprint?
worship space, we
Yes.
want meeting rooms, like what do we need
That's
as a
it.
congregation?
How
And
can
we
we
could-
figure out,
and that's where we could go
Deborah,
to-
just out of nowhere, what we want? You mean
that's
what we personally as a church want? to
As a
maintain?
church, yes, as a-
Okay, all right,
as a
that
church.
we can do,
Yeah.
yes.
And I would also do some stakeholder interviews with the current partners who rent your space. And ask them, what are your space requirements? What are your needs? We're dreaming about something really creative and imaginative being, created on the site.
Mhm.
If you had a dream, what would it look like?
We only have a couple of large renters.
Right. But just to talk to them, because those large renters we don't want to lose, potentially in a community hub model.
It's also good practice to hear them and hear other groups envision stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
and you can say, oh, that doesn't sound like what we're doing at all. Maybe we do need something different. So it's worthwhile. So
Right. So that comes back to kind of the A part is let's have some of those community stakeholder conversations with those who are invested in the space itself. Not just those who are outside giving, kind of their views on Oakville.
Mhm.
And then once we run through a cycle and it's looking, you know what, this is really positive, this is really good, then we can go out to create an RFP, get developers. And so that's an outcome there. While that's happening, we're then going back and going, okay, now we know what the community hub's going to look like in terms of space. Now let's find who those partners are. So that's a big treasure hunt, and it's a ton of fun to kind of unearth the partners that are located in your place, and them going, I want to be in a partnership and join in with what this hub could look like. And that's social impact piece, because what we want to do with the hub, and just so you're clear, this is how we define a community hub, is it is leveraging our asset for those who have been on the margins, marginalized, equity-seeking groups who need and require below market rent.
Mm.
So it's equity-seeking groups who require below market rent. So that's really important because it's like affordable housing. When the church is lost and those spaces are lost, where do all those groups that need below market rent go? they can't afford market rent. And a lot of those groups, to get ahead up, need below market rent so that they can act. So again, it's equity seeking, where they can't afford the market rent, but yet they have dreams, visions, and aspirations that could be incredibly successful had they just had a space that they could incubate. We get to provide those kinds of spaces. So that creates a really great story for the city, because we're providing below market rent for equity seeking groups within our community and our neighborhood. And we don't want to, you know, that, to me, that's something that we don't want to lose.
It's interesting because I'm not sure any of our current renters actually fall into that category.
And they don't,
Right. Right.
no. Well, the other
No,
church.
but they have the
you know,
money,
other
and
church
that
might
falls
want
into
more
a certain
space.
category we need.
Yeah, but they only come here because they don't have a lot of money. They come here, they come to us because it's cheap, but they don't
Right.
fall into the category of marginalized or equity seeking.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
I was
And those
listening
are-
to you, and I'm sitting there going, great, except none of those people actually rent from us.
Right.
They rent from us because it's cheap, but
2/3
because
of
they
our
get
renters,
market rate.
Right.
2/3 of our
It's-
rent money comes from two renters, one of whom is another church who wants a sanctuary, and the other
Yep.
one is the Air Cadets, who would like more storage
Fascinating.
space, thank you. And the rest of them are, you know,
Right.
doing yoga.
Right.
Well, like-
Mama
There
Couch
for-
yoga.
For the space that we
Like-
give away for free to the guides or
Right.
to different groups. who
Yep.
Might want more space and would like more space, but not, we can't give it away for free anymore.
Yes. One of my favorite, he's a good friend of mine, Tim Anderson. He has a community hub out of a church in Minneapolis. And he has taken on this model, the, you know, equity seeking groups, and he has some really cool partners. One is an organization called Render Free. And they create an business incubator for Black women entrepreneurs. And when they started, they had 20 entrepreneurs that were in the program. And now they have over 300. And he's now trying to find them space where they actually take over a whole church, because they actually have enough. And here's what's really fun about this is when you find groups like that, they have grant dollars. They have they have hundreds of thousands of dollars in their budget. So they're not just trying to find free space. And this is where the partnership becomes really fun, is you get to create a business model or a leasing model around what they're able to give. So if you have organizations that have higher budgets, it allows for you to also then rent to AA at no dollars at all. So that's the equity. And that's what we want to try and create within the model that we have. So our first outcome is we want to start working the cycles. I'm excited for what proposals have already been on the table. I think that expresses interest in the site, but I think there's clarity around what we want, we as in you as a team, so that we can work the cycles until we get, nope, this one's not going to work. Let's bump over to this one. So that we can truly come to the congregation with, here's what we can do. Are you in? Go to the region. Here's what we can do. Are you in? With a really clear picture.
So we need to gather ourselves again.
Yeah. Right. So lots of stuff here.
I wish these decisions were easy.
I know. Any
Oh,
other
yeah.
questions before we
Can
break
you
off
just
and
tell us
and-
which, and I can't.
I know.
But-
And
but-
there's so many other things we're juggling as well. So are there any more?
So are to work through this cycle, the cycles.
Yep.
You need to be very clear with us.
Yes.
I'm going to put it on you. You need to be very clear with us about what our role is in the cycle
Yep.
and what we should be doing.
I love that. What,
Because otherwise we're gonna float around
Yep.
and not get it done.
here's what I suggest moving forward is that this team meets with Kendra and myself or both of us on a more regular basis,
Absolutely.
where this is the team in which we're bringing stuff back to. And I know it's been Deborah and Carolyn, but there's something of great value in us meeting. And you have assets and knowledge and things that you can be doing in between our times. And so I think that's a great recommendation that I highly applaud. Yeah.
I'd prefer that myself. I think the team doing work together is far better than
It's way better.
ministers pushing and trying to explain and trying to remember and everything. Yeah, it's definitely
Well,
got to
and
be.
it provides
I think
a
it has to be
unified
part of the
voice to the
contract, has to
congregation.
be that we are meeting bi-weekly.
I
And
love
you
that.
Tell us what you have been doing
Yep.
and we'll, whatever we have, our part is, and then what you
love that.
plan to do the next couple weeks. So that I
Yep.
mean, it doesn't have to be a step by step, but just so that we know what's happening and don't have
And
this.
it could be a couple of weeks where we go,
uncomfortable
didn't do much, but it's fine. We get to check in anyways. And so I absolutely love that. And when I was working in Appleton for a project, that's what we did. We did bi-weekly, and it just worked really well. So, yeah.
Well, then we're not uncertain and wasting your time talking about what we don't get and what we don't know and all this sort of stuff.
Right, but it also creates a unified voice when the congregation has questions. Because we've been talking, we've been engaging, and they're going to come to you with concerns and questions, but now you're in the know.
How soon do we need to decide on those three options? Like what is our timeline for that? Like if we say, yeah, we want to keep this land, but sell part of it off to fund what we're going to do or whatever.
Well, to me, the sooner that we can come with a priority on, here's our priority. We'd love to keep part of the building or maybe none of the building, but stay on the site, like something within that, just to give us something to go on in how we're creating the RFP. If we put that RFP out and we have no one interested, we go, oh, there's a reason why there's no one interested. And it's because the dollars don't match up for them. So they're either looking for the whole site or nothing at all, as an example.
Mhm.
Then we get to come back to the drawing board and go, are we willing to let go of the whole site? So that's an example. So the sooner that we can run the process, the sooner we can come to an outcome.
So I guess our next step then is to look at this proposal that you've sent and decide whether we go forward with it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if there's any changes, like it's a draft proposal as they all are. So if there's any changes around wording, and so what I'm saying is we want to run the cycles on the development portion of it. And at the same time, really consider what a community hub could look like missionally within your congregation.
And I'm assuming that since it's the end of November, like January 1st is when we kind of kick off moving forward with this.
Yeah, and honestly, David and I are ready to start tomorrow. Like we're kind of chomping at the bit to go on this because we're excited about it. We think it's a fun project. We have developers who are already excited at the possibilities of what could happen on the site. So we don't follow the church calendar where it's Christmas, we're busy with other things, and we are happy to work as soon as possible.
Okay. And there was a payment plan in there too, right? That we could talk about?
There is a payment plan option, yes. And I don't know what it is.
Yeah, we can,
But there is one. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Can we make changes to that contract and then those changes would get incorporated in a next draft? Is that, because you said it was.
Depends. What I can do is send you a Google Doc of the draft proposal, and you can suggest edits and changes. Yep.
Sounds
how do
good.
we feel? Are we good to let Dave go? And
Please, if you have any
Comments,
other
that would be-
questions or thoughts,
We have your email.
Mhm.
you do. Yes, you do. That's a concern.
I'm sure in 5 minutes we'll have all sorts of questions for you.
We can find you.
I am, I just want to say this, I am super grateful for the process you've been on, the willingness to jump in both feet, and how you have got a congregation that is ready really to reimagine who we are as a church moving in. That is what's going to move you into sustainability. Just that heart. So I'm grateful to be able to be here and to have worked with you this far.
And thank you,
Thank you
Dave.
for
Thank you
coming.
for spending time with
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, I will send Deborah the draft
Okay.
and make any suggestions and edits.
Perfect.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much. Enjoy your night.
All right.
Thanks, Dave.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Dave.
Okay, so officially, next on our agenda is the finance report, or would we prefer just to talk about what just happened?
Better talk a minute about what happened anyway.
I think so.
Well, there is a community, what do we call it? There is a community,
Hub.
Oakville Community Foundation is a real thing, which is
Oh,
super
yeah.
cool. Yeah, I learned
Yeah.
something new, so that's neat.
My only concern about the community foundation is like every other organization. They have a mission and a role, and they will sometimes or all the times tell you what protects their mission and role.
Of course.
And it's a question of how in Oakville, how in tune the community foundation might really be with the needs of the disenfranchised within the community, since we have a tendency to hide them all over the place. So that was my only concern, because I knew he had said that's who they talked to. I go, well, one group for me is not a satisfactory exploration of what Oakville needs and looks like. I really think the Halton region itself might have things that they think they need, because they don't have space, but they may have needs.
There are definitely needs, and
Yeah, and
We
needs
want-
that they might be prepared to put money into
Mhm.
if they don't have to buy a space. You know what I
that's
mean?
what I think.
Yeah.
That's what I think. If you could get to the regional municipality,
But the town of Oakville, for them, I quite frankly, they might be semi-useful. They only do what gives them high stuff.
right,
Because
yeah.
as I say, they hide. Oakville is very good at hiding low-income housing
I
and
know
hiding
that.
poverty, like so that nobody finds it. Like you got to drive around, look for these places. Trust me, I've delivered food to them all, and very few of them are sitting on the main drag with a big sign out front.
One of
Yeah.
the concerns with any of this is that you need to know in advance that what we would like to do is doable. Like this property that we are on is in a residential area.
Yeah,
They will not take anything they won't want low income housing probably. They won't, like, you don't want to get into something like the Oakville Hydro business or the other stuff that keeps happening where the town fights, the residents fight stuff. You
Yep.
better come up with something that, I don't know.
I have to say, the idea of selling and then just another big house being put on it does
Oh, that's
not
not,
appeal to
yeah.
me.
no.
Yeah.
If we wanted, we could easily sell the property and get our money, and they would then build all a pile of nice multi-million-dollar homes. which they
Like,
would
who
sell
does
very
that
quickly.
serve, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
it
but
it
if
could
we, if
depend
we
on what
made
you
the most, if we
can do with
most,
the money.
Pardon?
It can also depend on what you can do with the money. So that's why I
Right.
think he says you define what you want to be first. And then say, can we do it here? And if you can't, well, then you take all that money and you do it somewhere else. Now, you might work with a developer that, quote, he classifies as having a conscience so that it isn't 3 houses going up there, each worth $7 million. But sometimes we may get to the point where we have to sell in order to go somewhere and do what we want to do.
Right, yes.
I'm on that path where we got neighbors. We've had neighbors. I don't know them, but there are neighbors, and I don't want to screw them out of $50,000 for their house. I would take whatever we could get without putting in low income housing and take that money. We got that money and we can put that towards the people that need it.
So right now, I mean, there's a church on that property already, and there's a Y right next to the church. So already that land is designated towards the community. And I
Yeah.
think the neighbors will be happy if it's still designated towards the community,
That's
right?
good, yeah.
Community
yeah.
work, community needs, whatever that might be. Dave has already said that low income housing probably would not work and would not help us to be financially sustainable. So I don't even
Yep.
think that's going to be an option.
That's good then, yeah, right.
But a community need wouldn't be like. Oh, what's the big name in the missions? Good,
You
good
mean
shepherd,
Salvation Army?
good shepherd. Isn't that what it's called?
Yeah, like a drop-in center sort of. soup
The
kitchen.
homeless center.
Yeah,
Get
that
them in
would
the big cities, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think they want
Scott's
that,
Mission. Scott's Mission or something like that. Is
Yeah.
that what you're thinking of?
whatever. I'm
But you've got the
saying,
Y and you've got a school right there, so family-based, maybe smaller homes, but not full affordable, maybe not full big mansions, but something family-based would be doable.
Like maybe like an intake center for new refugees or immigrants to when I was a student at UWO, there was actually a whole center dedicated to new immigrants and getting them all the things they needed to start their new lives in Canada. So I worked there and I can't remember what it's called now. It's in London, Ontario, but something like that.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily providing housing, at least not permanent housing,
Right.
but
Exactly.
is everybody leaning towards like one of those solutions? Like I quite like the idea of staying on the property, but maybe selling a substantial part of it, figuring out how to make that, or leasing a substantial part of it. Like what did that Glen Abbey Church do? Did they still own the property and then they get the income from it because there's
Now, the partnership owns the property and they're a partner.
right. And then, because I think that's my aunt lives in that town, that condo, right? So they must get revenue from the condo.
Yeah.
They are getting about, you mean from the seniors residents?
Yeah, well,
Domain.
is it a seniors residence or
Yeah.
is that they built or a
Seniors
condo?
residents, and they get about 400,000 a year when it's a good year.
Okay,
They have not been getting that much the past couple of years, but they expect to within a year or so, which
right,
is why they feel they are financially viable.
right. So, yeah, so the key is like, if we were to keep the property, how do we make it financially viable? Because selling it is either in part or whole will obviously give us some income, but if you don't find a way to sustain that income and keep it going, ultimately, you're still going to be in the same boat. You're just in the same boat 10 years from now, right? So like, I'm almost in favor of like not selling it and figuring out a way to like bring in partners to make some sort of revenue generating income for us so that we can then do what we want.
I think that's basically that's really what he's suggesting is we decide what we want to do. And then the question is, can we do it where we are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
until somebody says no,
Yeah,
that's where we drive. But as soon as that becomes unviable, then we have to look at option B.
So I
So,
think what we have to say is that we want this square footage for a sanctuary. We need X meetings rooms for this, like, we need to say what square footage do we need within this building?
and we may have to change our thinking about what is a sanctuary.
That is, yes, you might have to say it's got the whole thing, but that's why I say it's square footage.
Yeah.
What space do we as a church require?
yeah, I would say
the rest
a
of
lot
it-
less than what we currently have, that's for sure.
The rest of it then becomes developable. Because what we're getting in rental isn't enough to do any good for anybody.
Right. Yeah,
It
So
won't be,
just throw-
you have to define what it is we want to be, because we have to define the space required to do that, not just the sanctuary space. So
I think
it's,
that we don't have to define the space, I don't.
oh,
think.
yeah, that's what he's looking for. He's looking for what space do you want to, what space do you want
We personally,
to carry out your mission?
yes, but
then
not
the
what
rest-
we want with the rest of the space.
Right.
And the rest of it'll be developed, but it's not just a sanctuary.
No, I'm saying, meeting rooms, you want a friendship room, you want a little gym, like what do we need, and we
Well,
have to find that.
Yeah, and that's where I was the gym. People in the gym don't meet any of the any of the criteria about being needy, equity seeking. Like,
Plus, between the whole lot of them, there's about 20 renters, and the whole lot of them generate $20,000 a year for us.
Yeah.
It's not,
Well, and realistically, there is a big gym next door.
yes,
Like,
exactly, yes.
It's kind of like when we were laughing in the summer about, a coffee bar or even nice permanent pubs and pews and everything. And
mm,
Deborah and Jeff and Jay and I were out at Three Brewers a couple of weeks ago, and they have gorgeous big copper tanks. And like, do we want a brew pub kind of, if Harold's going to say, what does a sanctuary look like? We get the chance to be creative and I mean, that's taking it a long way. I'm kind of joking about that, but
But not entirely.
but you see, just for you, Jeff, not entirely. That's the kind of thing. Like if we were elbow to elbow with one, and you partner with them. But the creativity is the part that we don't have the freedom to do, or we're really out of practice on, because we have a friendship room and we have washrooms and we have school classrooms, and that's what we know. So the creativity is a challenge.
So this is what I'm worried about.
I'm just trying to, I understand what you are saying. So we are defining what we want our church to be. And then is it they are the ones who then figure out what to do with the rest of the land, or propose what to do with the rest of the property?
they send out a request for proposals.
No, but
for
they do that
part.
after they have an idea of what they want. So the RFP is the end of this.
What
So
were you
they have
saying,
to-
Ken? You started
So
to
what
say,
I'm worried about, and this is total dreamosphere here. I've got no basis on saying this. So we're a few steps ahead of our other United Church friends. So let's say we decide we got to get out of this. We're selling the place. We're moving to a place on Spears Road. I don't know. We find some rental place beside Lowe's. And that's where we're going to go. And then the next one out that decides they just can't financially manage is Trinity. So Trinity sells off and they come over and visit us. And then St. John's, who has, a lot of, dead people money. They can last a little longer. And then now they're out and they say, you know what? Listen, let's bring all our money and let's come on to our place. Which maybe sounds fine, but it still gives me that winners and losers. And that's the one thing that I got a real problem with. The winners and losers. Who are the winners and losers? Because St. John's would end up looking like the winner. And And I think we would lose people going there because. Do you know where I'm going with this, or am I just?
Not really, because
I
they're
don't know
not
if you do.
ready, they're not ready to go anywhere.
I
at
don't know,
this
don't know
point.
what you mean about St. John's being the
Uh,
winner.
Because
I
this,
just-
because it would be located at St. John's rather
It
than.
would be the last man standing.
Yeah,
Do
well,
we
yeah,
know-
I think at that point, like it's a totally, like, I think at a certain point, we make clear to St. John's and Trinity or whoever else, like, we are ready to move forward. This is what we're doing. You know, to put it simply, are you interested in coming along for this? Like, are you any more ready now than you were then? And if not, we're gonna go and do this. And then down the road, if you know, another congregation says like, oh, we've rethought about it and now we're maybe ready to start talking. Well, that's like a totally new discussion for us at that point. We have now moved on, we've gone ahead. We've done our own, like we've made decisions that are in our best interest. We gave you the opportunity to come along with that. You weren't ready, that's fine. And we treat it as a completely new thing to consider at that point. Like I really don't, like, I am not in the business of waiting for, like, letting other people make our decisions for us or influencing our
timeline.
decisions. All we can do
And
is
St.
be
John's
as
is struggling.
And all
I'm
we can do is be
100%
as-
behind you, Jeff. I guess this is exactly what I was saying. We're gonna go and do our thing. We've got to survive ourselves. I can't carry you. We're gonna look after ourselves. I guess my issue was, what is our congregation gonna feel like if they know the other congregations are watching to see what we do? And, oh, this works, oh, then we're out, and then, you know, the
So
last
Ken,
one
their
standing with the
timeline-
building, the last one standing with the building.
St. John's
You know
is
what I
not
mean?
in that position. St. John's minister is leaving next year. They know they don't have any money. What they said last week is, and I don't know that this is going to last for the whole year, but what they said last week is, we want to wait until our new minister is here and do this work with the new minister. Personally, in the work that I've done, it's backwards, because you kind of have to have a congregation that's excited for a plan, who calls a minister who is then brought right into an exciting plan. That's the best way to do that. But I can't, I mean, it's not up to me, but their money, their knowledge of their future is a short timeline.
10
They
years,
are-
isn't it?
Oh, it's, well, 10 years at the best.
Yeah, at the back.
So, yeah, they don't have a last man standing situation.
Yeah, John's been very, very open with me. I don't know why he thinks I'm his buddy. Something happened, so I'll
You're a
admit
nice
that
guy.
this Sunday, I just went to church at St. John's. I will admit, I had to introduce myself to him because he didn't recognize me. But then he did, and then we sat beside each other, and I thought maybe after church, you know, there's this friendship room thing, maybe that would happen, and people could see that we didn't have horns on our head. But John just sat and talked to me in the pews until the place was basically closed and I had to get the hell out of there. I don't know where I was going with that.
And
I just-
Trinity was worried about money. They didn't feel they had the money to get in on this with us. And
He thinks there's a collection of people that just says burn through it all until we're just done, and then we're out.
Yeah.
Or
And that's a choice.
or
to
take
make.
something that we have and build something with this beautiful legacy that we have. He's telling me there are those two stories.
the sad thing is that could be part of the story.
Yeah.
Right? And
I
so
don't think it's not part of our story either.
There are-
Palermo's a few years ahead of them,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're
I
following
talked
the
to-
same strategy, so.
I talked to Marion last week as well. Last week or the week before, whenever.
I think to go back to the question that Kent, you know, the thing, Kent, that you said that kind of resonated with me, and I want to go back to it for a second, is, you know, how are our people gonna feel potentially down the road in the future if, you know, before we learned all this about St. John's, if St. John's is the winner because their building is the last one, like, they haven't made that decision. And I would sincerely hope that you know, there may be some like, oh yeah, bummer, that could have been us. But I actually hope that people would say, I'm proud of us for making the tough decisions up front needed to sustain this over the long term, and not being so short-sighted as to think that, you know, I would love to believe that people would be proud of the fact that we prioritized our mission and who we wanted to be as a people over seeing whose building could last the longest. Like, I would be extremely disappointed and would probably want to disassociate from a group of people who viewed it that way, if I'm being totally honest. Like that.
But I think though that we have had a clear message from our congregation that that's not them.
Yeah, I don't actually
That
believe that people would
they
be
would like us
disappointed.
to
Like,
move forward, to make something happen. And
yeah, I don't get the sense that there
I
would
don't-
be
they
that
won't be
those
like that.
people. And if
And that
honestly,
is
if there-
fantastic, man. And I'm telling you, you sound like an 80-year-old church guy who's been around for forever who would say such a thing. And I think that's great. And so,
I had a conversation with one of the ladies last week who was not at any of the table talks because she is a advanced age, and she said, oh, I'd be so sad if we sold. And I said, well, you know, a lot of people would, that, you know, it's a sad thing. I said, but it will be a few years before anything gets rocking and rolling. Like, we're here for a while. She says, oh, I'll be dead by then. That'll be okay.
oh, there you go.
Right.
I'm like,
thing.
I totally didn't feed that. It was so funny, but it was full freedom. You go and do what matters, is what she was saying. So who knows?
Well, what's always interesting is it's the ones that can't get there anymore that seem to be the saddest about it moving.
That's right.
That's interesting.
I guess I'm harking back to these other major things that have happened in the church, and where one vote won over another vote, and there was like clapping, and how divisive that was. And I guess that's where I've seen that happen.
But we
and-
didn't get any of that feeling from the table talks.
No, we didn't.
I mean, what
No,
you
we
got are
didn't.
people who
No.
understand the reality and are
I think
supportive.
we have to be very clear, remember, even if 80% say, yes, we want to do this, 20% say no. That we are very clear that whatever decision gets made, there is no clapping, right?
Yeah.
That we-
Right, yeah,
We are
yeah.
going forward together with this decision, but we need to be aware of the excitement some are feeling, and need to be aware of the grief that people are feeling and move forward together like that.
I think
I mean, we
the
haven't-
truth is,
we
even
haven't
if
really-
we're excited, there's still grief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. And we haven't really lost very many people each time we made a huge decision. Some people will always lead a group, any
Of
group,
course.
when big decisions get made, because some people will be adamantly opposed and feel they got to go some. But we haven't lost a lot. I mean, it was a very small number, I believe, each time this occurred.
I agree with you.
And that's
And
part
it-
of the plan. Right?
It's unreal to
The
think
plan
you-
is knowing who, or like what to do the next day, because the next day after the vote is still work to be done, and it's still support, and it's still grief work and exciting work. It all continues.
Yeah.
I honestly believe that if we present the congregation with a compelling vision of the future and a way forward, that they'll follow
Mhm.
where we lead, you know? So I think that's like on us. Just
Oh.
looking at the time, guys, because I've got a
Yeah.
6:30 call tomorrow morning. What's our, like, are we
What is our next step?
are we saying that we're going to either amongst ourselves or with the congregation vote to decide to either go with their proposal or not go with the proposal. I mean, there's a lot of discussion happening here that sounds like people might be thinking we would go with their proposal. I'm a driver, so I need results and I need to see action and I want it like now. So I apologize because I find the discussion part, it always seems to take longer for me.
Well,
I
we're
feel
going
comfortable if
round
we
in
have
circles
bi-weekly
anyway.
meeting. If we have bi-weekly meetings and it sounded like he's aware that maybe we need to be more engaged as a group with him. And that they need to understand, they need to be very explicit with us because this is not
I
our
think we should put
expertise.
all that into, like, if we don't want to put it into their document, then we put it into some sort of,
Yeah.
some format that we can review with them and get sign off so that they know exactly what we're expecting.
I think
And I think
it
that
should be
occurs.
very clear in the contract.
Yeah.
What we expect of them.
So this is
Sounds
if we
like we are
agree
kind
to
of-
go to the next step and pay the 30,000 or whatever the lower price was that he came
Yeah.
up with.
Sounds like we're ready to go forward in principle. We just want to review the contract.
Yeah.
I would say I would feel comfortable if we explicitly enumerated what we expect from them as far as meetings and outputs.
Yep.
So that we're not having the same conversations like we did last time where we're like, we don't know what they're doing. We don't feel like we're getting our money's worth. If we do that and then they're not meeting those expectations and outputs.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think if we're very
then
clear and not, don't make it frilly, just make it clear. We want bi-weekly meetings. We want to know who you are, what you plan to do the next couple of weeks before the next meeting and what you have done, right?
And what we need to do.
And what we need to do, but
Yeah.
that has to be just explicitly stated
Yeah.
in the contract.
Yeah.
So,
This,
And I'm
this
sure-
isn't our expertise.
Hmm?
This isn't our expertise. It's their expertise.
Yes,
They need to
exactly.
tell us.
Yeah,
Leave us.
and they're gonna help us make the decision as to like sell all, sell part, sell none. Right? Like that's part of the deal.
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
So to me, this is a project and we are on the team of this project, but they are the leaders of they are the project managers at this point. We are not.
We need our statement of work, right? And
No, I mean, they have to, it is a project. This whole thing, if it goes round in circle, I know what I'm doing next, that,
I don't like steps that go A, B, C, D, E, that then go A, D, C, E, like that drives me crazy. I'm sorry. Like if it's a step, then the next step should follow logically behind. But anyway, that's just me.
I think all
So
they are.
what
is they-
I'll say on that is, especially when we are this small team working with 100 people, that we're bringing them along, there will be times where that process is not linear. And it looks more
It's
like
not going to be linear at all,
this, but
Yeah.
yeah,
but you should certainly know when you're starting your project, what you're going to do for the next 2 weeks. If you don't even know that much, then, you're in a little bit of trouble in your project.
And we're agile here, so we
We are
only
very
do
agile,
2 weeks. Everything's 2 week sprints, right?
Yeah, that's enough time. So what's next?
Okay, so just a question, do we need a motion to move
I
on
think we
to?
would need the motion once everything's all, like, once it's presentable, like, once we both agree on it and.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause it's still a draft. I think we just agree to move forward in principle with it, and then next time we meet, maybe vote on it.
Okay,
And in terms of modifying the contract,
I just sent the link in Slack, by the way. It's the David sent it already, so it's there for you.
okay.
okay. so
Okay,
do-
how's your dinner doing?
Pardon?
How's your dinner doing?
Getting colder and colder. All right, can we move on to the finance committee,
we can do it fairly quickly, yeah.
my dear? My dear
Has
finance
everybody
committee.
actually looked at it?
Oh, yeah, I forgot to send you a number. There's no way this gets better either.
No, it actually gets worse because
Oh, yeah,
well, there's a couple of things. So for starters, I had Jeannie do the rent projection for next year. Like, I'm trying to make this a realistic budget.
Yep.
And not what we hope. So she projects the rent next year will be 50,000, not 65. So 60 might be, if you want to
Yeah.
make it a little bit something, but
yeah, I know someone wants to rent the parking lot last part of the year next year, so.
she's hoping there would be some others, but
Yeah.
60,000 seems more reasonable than 65. The other question was just to do the transfer from trustees. First of all, Kent, you owe us money for this year already. I hope it's coming.
I'll talk to Frank.
We've
I
got,
admit when Helga used to do it, just automatically happened. I'll
I
talk
know.
to Frank.
we budgeted for 20,000 to come in and we've only had 10,000. So I just need to know, I mean, I don't need to know, but would like to know whether there's another 10,000 coming to us this year. Or not.
I don't see why there isn't.
Okay,
We haven't had any great outgoing expenses.
so then just if he could do the check before the month is out, so.
I will
a
send him
better
right
idea.
now. You want 10,000?
Yeah. Well, that's what used to
Yeah.
come.
No. Yeah.
So then the question is, would we be budgeting that again for next year? That same thing, we assume that.
So
or-
if you want to create a nasty budget, if we get this place inspected and assessed, and the inspector says this place is hazard, I'm making this up because I'm not an inspector. But if he says this is a hazardous place to live, you need to spend you need to take these walls down, you need to put in new studs, drywall, the whole 9 yards. It's going to be $90,000.
Or
We'll
more.
never make that money up as
And you
long as
need the money
churches-
back from the church to pay for it because,
We will never make that money back. So is there income coming? I would hope so. My hope is yes. But once we get that done, if they say really this should really be done, because I don't think she's going to turn around and say we all got sick and we're all going to sue you because there's black mold in the house and we knew about it because I washed it off.
well, then I'll put in 10,000 as I have it. I won't make it higher. And that leaves something to do something. I mean, if you needed $50,000 to do something, the Mance doesn't generate 50,000 anyway. You'd have
I
to-
know.
you'd
But
have
we're
to
never
go-
gonna, at the rent she's paying. I don't know how we're just as well to wash our hands and say it's condemnable and you need to leave.
Yep.
I don't think we're there yet, but I'm not that guy. I don't know.
All right, so I'll leave that at that. With the rent down, that means our deficit is now up to 72,000.
Building maintenance, I lost a number when I sent it to you.
Did you?
Yeah, I didn't give you a number.
Uh-oh. Oh, you mean you want to do something? What did you want, Harold?
I don't want to do anything, but I have a feeling.
So building maintenance, what should be in there? Not zero?
Oh, not zero, no.
What?
I will at least put 10,000 in there.
Sure, what's another 10? 77,000.
I'm getting more and more worried about the plumbing in the electrical room.
Yes, I know. So that brings us up to 82,000. So the question was for mission, like in terms of a payment plan for TFC, Trinity Foundation. Like whether we pay it in January or December makes absolutely no difference to anything unless they're willing to have us pay it after the fact. It doesn't help us, like makes no difference.
Yeah,
So
30 grand in January or 30 grand over 6 months is,
makes no difference. wherever we plan to spend it, that's where I would put it in the budget and it will show up accordingly. But to spend 30,000, then we are looking at a $100,000 deficit, $102,000, $112,000 deficit. So as you know, in previous years, we don't like to give budgets like this. We like to hope that things are better than they are. And there is still opportunity in December if something wonderful happens and people come up with more money and so on. Then I'd be willing to bump up the envelope offerings some more. I've already bumped them up over what is reasonably expected. Par is par, and that's easy to be budgeted. But most of the things like our committees, as you're well aware, our committees spend next to nothing. And our costs are all operational and salaries. I mean, that's where all of our money is going. So there's very little we can play with or even plug in a line to say we hope.
Do you still have a line in there for youth group leaders or like hiring a youth group person?
No. I don't, that one I think should be off the table. Like we can't hire.
Yeah, no, that's,
No.
but that was what I was going to say is if that's built into the budget, then I think you're okay to take that out.
Did you build it in, Jeff? Anything?
No.
No. No, there's nothing new built into here. It's simply what is. And anybody have any other?
Do you think all this talk of selling off and getting rid of the church and blah, blah, blah is gonna put a damper on people giving? Because it's like, oh, well, why? We're throwing water into a sinking ship.
Well, it hasn't, we've been talking about it now for a while, and it has not hampered. And in fact, there have been people coming through with larger sums to help.
All right, great.
And for the stewardship thing that we didn't get a huge amount, but we had more people upping their par this year than have upped it in the past 3. So it's a few more $1,000s there. The envelope offerings, that's part of why I'm not bumping up envelope offerings particularly, because the people who responded, which were very few on envelope offerings, are the people who already give. Like the people who haven't been giving for the past few years, none of them have responded and none of them have shown up in the past few months. So I don't think
They're goners.
if we put $30,000 into mission, this budget is going to have to be approved at an annual meeting. And I would think that that would be where we would get the questions from people. And the real answer to the question is that we either spend the money or we vote to die. Like, really, what are our options here? We want to be a church and a community that is doing some good for years to come. And we can't do it for nothing. I was going to suggest, which you can shoot me down immediately, is that there is money in the memorial fund, which could be used to this. To me, this is a lasting project. And that money could be taken from the memorial fund. And I mean,
That's an interesting concept of legacy.
well, it is legacy. It's legacy if there was ever legacy, but it still leaves us with an $82,000 deficit. But we could vote on it and not have the congregation approve it as well, I think.
Judy, if there was a list that came to the right places, because I know money is a tricky spot for givings and so on, but if there was a list of the people who have sort of fallen away, where
We've been through that.
support and outreach could happen that had nothing to do with stewardship and nothing to do with envelopes and nothing to do with anything, but had to do with, hey, how are you doing? You know, your kids
Yeah.
need something or whatever, just to see if there was life still in that relationship.
got
It
the
might be a
list
slow
of-
process, but that might be helpful.
I got the list of those who have not given, who used to give, and it was a large number. When you boiled it down, it's not a large number. And I don't, we can go back to that list again and see if there's specific names. I'm not remotely comfortable sharing that list anywhere.
Yeah.
Offerings and money are private.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
I think
that's
that's
the trick in that concept that I raised.
the people who are giving us money, you are seeing in the church by and large, unless they, and people who are on par haven't fallen off their giving. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember what Deborah saw it, but nothing that stood out.
Okay,
I think it's basically just fewer people, period. That during the pandemic, like I think as in many other areas of life, there are people during the pandemic who decided, I don't want to go to church anymore, you know, something else to do, or I would prefer to do. Like there are people who don't come to church anymore. Those people are worth following up with. To see if they are planning to come back, if there's anything that they need, want.
or if there's a way they can be inspired to give, even if they're watching online periodically.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you talk about money every single week and you know, people who are online here that were in trouble. As I say, there's been some generous donations that have come in. And Kathy Dudek has her aunt, Natalie Wilson, who many of you would know. I didn't know her, but she had set up a legacy fund that was giving us $1,200 or $1,000 a year, depending on what the fund made. Kathy has collapsed that fund, and we will get $25,000 from that. Now, I asked to have it. The check is going to come very soon. My recommendation is that it be put into next year's budget, which I did put it in, rather than this year. Like this year is whatever this year is, and not going to get a whole lot better, but it makes next year not quite as awful.
So it's already in the budget?
Already in, sadly, yeah. But I don't think it should go in this year, even though we get the check. Just,
Yeah.
No, I don't know what to do with this budget beyond, it is what it is.
The truth will set you free.
The truth will set you free. So,
So
what do you think about the memorial fund? Because this is basically the committee who would vote on it. I could make a motion
for,
that if we do decide to go forward with TFC, that
Yeah.
if we decide to go forward, the money be taken from the memorial fund. So I will make that motion.
so there is a motion. Do we have a seconder? Harold, do
Yep.
we have a seconder? Any
Now
discussion?
Yeah.
Do we tell the congregation this, or is this?
We could.
Well, it has to be transparent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I should be.
So for me, you're right. The memorial fund is all about legacy going forward. I'm giving this to you so you can, go forth and bloom or whatever it is. Or it's, someone from the church died and people had nothing to do with St. Paul's say, this is where she wants the money to go. He wants the money to go. I'll give you the St. Paul's Memorial Fund. Never stepped foot in St. Paul's except for maybe that funeral.
There's lots of that.
So I think in the heart of those people who said give it to St. Paul's was so St. Paul's could thrive. And
Yes,
if this, basically what we're doing is trying to get St. Paul's to thrive, we're doing exactly what they would want. I can't imagine that we're doing something that they, we could tar the roof, sure, but I don't think, I think
I
this.
think
would
it's very
better.
easy to say all of those words and have the congregation agree.
Is there, how much is in there now, Judy? Is it like over 50?
50, it's 50-ish.
Okay.
And sorry, we do this with them for 30,000. Isn't there another part? Like, wasn't this whole thing like $100,000 or something?
The last part is actually when the development's happening. So hopefully the last expense will come from some of the income that we have made from whatever we do.
Okay, I was just wondering, because I was thinking, 10,000,
to.
30, that's 40, that we still have like 60,000 somewhere that we would need to come up with
Right.
in order to complete this whole process, right?
Yeah, at the moment, like, this is our income and expense. I mean, this is your bank statement, so to speak. There's still, I think, is around 70,000 in the bank account. Because it was running very low and we topped it up so that we didn't have to top it up anymore. So, and that was from the legacy.
Yeah.
And then
So is that the end of that legacy then? Is it's all in the bank account now?
it's all in the memorial fund now. I think, how do I know that? I'd have to look at it again. I'm tired.
Okay. Okay.
I think we spent 200,000, we have 50,000 left. I think that was the gist of it.
Okay.
So we will have to, we'll have to be very creative. Oh, I don't have the holiday. Yeah, I do. We'll have to come up with some creative fundraising thing for next year.
Yeah.
I was saying when Shirley Ann gets back, or we need
30
to-
grants we can apply for? I mean, everybody's talking
Not
about
for
grants.
operation costs, really.
They always want us to do stuff. These grants.
Well, like I know there's the grant that Harold's been doing for the security, but
Yeah.
I just wondered if there was any other grants. that
I would suggest we look and get creative in thinking about it, because sometimes youth ministry can come that way, like events or activities. Like if somebody's interested in looking at that with Deborah and me and maybe helping put that together, sometimes groups are being pretty creative about funding stuff. And if all it does is give people really cool things to be a part of, that keeps them happy and giving and part of St. Paul's, and that's valuable too, so.
Yeah, it's just, quite frankly, finding the people that aren't volunteering to volunteer to do this. So that's my background conversation about it, is the people that are volunteering are already wearing out.
Yeah.
So it's finding somebody
Look-
else. That's
Look
prepared
to your left, everybody,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so
All right.
another thing in this finance committee, I think maybe we brushed over was what to budget for mission.
That we budget 30,000.
That was the discussion.
That's the discussion we just had.
Okay,
Yeah, that was wherever it is.
all right, that's okay.
All right, so I'm going to then, I've finalized the budget at this. I will still take another look at it in mid-December if anything has happened in money coming in partway through the month, something like that, that I have missed, that I can put in here. But it should be finalized by the end of the year. The congregation never votes the budget down, but I guess it's the first time for everything.
So are we proceeding to vote on whether or
Oh,
not to
yeah.
take the money out of the memorial fund to I mean, did we even decide to go
We
with
didn't vote that
TCF?
on that yet.
We haven't voted
We
yet.
said if we decide to proceed with TFC, then I am recommending that the money come from the Memorial Fund.
TCF, yes.
TCF.
TCF. Trinity,
And I agree, we got a little off.
it's not Trinity
track there,
Foundation
so-
Center?
Yeah, Trinity Centers Foundation, right?
Is there any more discussion on that? So we have a motion, we have a seconder, all in favor
Sorry, what are we voting on?
on whether to use the
Memorial.
money for the memorial fund to pay for this.
Okay.
So, sorry, show of hands here for Judy. It's unanimous.
Okay. I'm done.
But that still is, the caveat is we still haven't decided we will move forward with TCF,
It's
right?
only
Like, we'll
if.
still have to.
Yes.
Okay.
Only if.
Okay, so moving along with the agenda, church management team. Harold's gonna comment on the security camera and the faith and the common good faithful
Harold
footsteps
has two
grant
motions.
applications.
Yeah, I lost my first motion.
Harold, why don't you assume everybody has read it and read your motions?
Well, I lost the one motion. I thought I had it printed out, but I can't find it. If I try to find it in my computer, it'll be days before I arrive back on Zoom.
I can, well, if I find it, I might have to leave the meeting.
It's in Slack, right?
Yeah.
I just saw it.
Oh, you can read it then.
Sure.
There's two motions.
I'm just reading the motions, right? I was just. Okay, hold on.
Is this the project summary for grant?
It says
No.
motions for
Is
November.
this the board approval motion,
Motions.
November? I see board approval. Ontario Anti-Hate Security Measures Grant 2022-23.
Yeah, that's the one I can't find, that motion. It's a confirmational motion.
Okay, all right. It says the Ontario government invited applications for grant money to increase security of faith-based facilities. The members of the board agreed to support Harold Deviney applying for a grant of $7,500. The fund needs to be spent on security measures by March 31st, 2023. We applied and were approved in July, and the funds were deposited to our bank account in late July. 2 security camera firms were approached for quotes. A1 Security in Burlington and Unicom Solutions came to the site and then provided proposals. Unicom provided a very good, complete, and expensive solution for $16,487.83. A1 Security provided a less complex, less expensive solution for $7,714.71. Both included HST. By a poll, the board agreed with the recommendation to accept A1 Security Systems quote. To ensure that there is proper documentation of these decisions, Harold Deviney moves at the November 22nd, 2022 board meeting that the decision to apply for the grant and the decision to accept the quote from A1 Security be ratified by the board.
That's my motion.
So there's a motion,
I
seconded by Judy.
Yeah.
Any discussion? Any questions for Harold?
I hope not.
You done good.
None for me.
Seeing no discussions? All in favor? Let's call that unanimous.
Okay. Now, the interesting part is that eventually when we get to the documentation from them and the training, I will invite anybody that would like to end up having the security cameras on their phone.
Ooh.
Thanks. but
It's
no
really interesting. Yeah. I knew it was snowing at the church. There was no snow on our front lawn. I looked at it, holy mackerel. So the second motion, so I'm sure you've all had a chance to take a look at the motion about lights and more lights and 3 refrigerators. So after reviewing the quotes, all of that, so I'm moving that we submit a request for grant funding from the Faith and Common Good for the following project costs. And maybe I got this backward. I do, I got it backwards. Let's start with the first one. After reviewing the quotes for replacement of fixtures and bulbs in the sanctuary and the gym to move all to LED, I move that we accept the quote from Lighting Solutions. If you got to look at it, they're actually, we're reasonably close. Lighting Solutions are lighting experts. Crown Electric is an electrical company who can replace lights. So that's how I placed them in my mind. Crown was also, other than when he followed up with me, when he finally sent me the quote, followed up 4 days later to say, oh, did you get it? Have you made a decision? It was like 6 weeks each time before he got back to me, and I had to jar his memory a couple of times. So right off the bat, I get a little worried about getting the project completed in that timely manner. So I'd like to go with the Lighting Solutions because it was a little cheaper. Plus the fact we don't have to move pews around. If we went with Crown Electric, he would want us to get the pews out of the way so he can bring his little machine in. The other guy's going to put scaffolding around the pews and work off of that. So that's my first.
So that's your motion?
That we
So does
accept.
has everyone seen this? It's in Slack.
Yeah.
Everyone's seen it. So we all know what we're voting on. Just want that to be clear.
Yeah.
Okay. So Harold's made a motion. I need a seconder. Jeff. And then any discussion for Harold on that?
My only discussion is, when is this work going to be done? And are they billing us this year or next year?
My guess is it'll all be next year
So,
because we have to.
so
I
have you
have to-
put it in the budget, Harold?
Yeah, that was the $10,000.
That's the 10,000. Oh, goody. All right.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion? Okay, let's call that unanimous.
And then my next
Well-
motion, because
well
this
done,
has to
Harold.
be,
You had
this
another
has to
one?
be, yeah, I have another one because the application has to be approved. So I figure if I do it now, and then when they come to get a signature from the board chair, they won't have to say, but we didn't do the motion yet. So the motion is that we submit a request for grant funding from Faith and Common Good for the following project costs. One is the replacement of fluorescent bulbs in the sanctuary. Including, the other one is to include the audit that we already had. We paid $17.50. We can claim that and get money back for that. And to replace the refrigerators in the main kitchen, the small kitchen, and the friendship room. And guess what took most of the time in all of this? Finding these refrigerators online so I could get prices. Like, oh, getting lights was easy. So all those costs are going to come to $20,000 plus HST. The numbers are,
Harold.
and we'll get 2/3 of it back,
When?
probably shortly after we spend it, because I won't spend it until they approve the grant.
So how much is that going to cost?
Well, I never know because I don't know how much HST we get back. So
Well, I can calculate that for you, but how much is it going to cost with HST?
$22,444.
And we get 2/3 back, so I should be adding then another 7,000 to that 10,000?
That's where the $10,000 is.
You said the 10,000 was the lights.
Yeah, and this is the lights. I will
This is
not
the
spend the
lights-
money on the lights
the
until I
lights and
get
the-
the grant application approved.
And the
And the
fridge.
grant application is to pay for the lights. So it's a
And we can
two-step,
take the refrigerators with us when we go.
we could.
All right, so Harold, you did a real runaround here, but
Mhm.
there's writing here. So you're
First of all, I had to get
asking
the,
to replace, there's a motion, a separate motion, if I'm not wrong. Replace the refrigerators in the main kitchen, small kitchen, friendship room. $5,319 plus HST. Total project cost is $20,000.63 plus $2,381 HST. We should receive 2/3 of this project cost as a grant. That is your motion.
The motion is to move ahead with submitting the request for the grant. And it's gonna look like that.
Seconder for Harold's motion,
Awesome.
Allison. Thank you, Allison.
So we have
Any
three.
questions for
motions here.
Harold?
No, there's two motions. One is
Well,
to
we've
take,
already voted on two, so what are we voting on the third time?
I think we're just voting on the refrigerators.
no,
We're voting on the submission of the grant application.
thank you. That's what we're doing.
There's the security. There's
That
the
was,
lights.
that was,
and
but that was
there's-
separate.
Right.
was a
and
separate
then
one.
there's the
Yeah.
apply for
Yes.
the grant to replace the lights and also throw in refrigerators on top of that.
That's
And,
the
and the reason I'm getting it approved now is that eventually we have to say, yes, we had it approved by the board. The board
Right,
has
so
to
might as
approve. the
well.
grant. So I'm gonna do it now, get it
Makes
done,
sense. Makes sense. Yeah.
and then I think it may have to go to region. I'm not sure. That's why I can't answer your question, Judy, about when. Nothing ever moves. The fastest thing was that $7,500 grant. No
That's very
bureaucracy.
quick,
I
yeah.
can't believe it.
Okay. So are we
That
voting?
money's in liability, so it doesn't matter when the bill comes in. That 7,500.
Yeah.
We still have.
Yeah, just make sure it's all accounted for and the books are right, because I think Jeannie's getting confused.
Did we actually vote on that? Because I know
Yes.
I seconded.
We did
Oh,
that.
okay.
We did that one already.
We voted on the moving forward to apply for the grant. Okay.
That's what you're.
Oh,
I
no,
have
we
three
have not.
people-
That's what I thought. I thought I seconded, but I didn't think we voted on it.
I'm trying, I didn't think so either. I'm like, I'm trying to lead this. What the hell? Okay,
Well, at this moment, I have an anti-hate grant that I seconded.
Yep.
Then we
okay,
talked
hang
about
on, hang on,
lights.
hang on. Are we done with Harold's?
No,
We haven't voted on his.
Right,
Because
so
I-
before Judy,
I'm
Haven't
just saying,
voted
I
on
have
this.
three motions.
Yes,
Yes,
Yes.
with three motions.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we have to still vote on the last one. I believe.
Yeah.
And it's 9:30.
Yeah,
I know. So, do we have any other discussions for Harold?
Sounds
All in
very-
favor? All right, let's call that unanimous.
great.
Thank you.
then we're done with Harold.
Yeah. Harold done with Harold.
All right, every time I close off one thing in stack, I can't open the next thing. Okay, Allison's spirituality leadership team. Any new report?
We're going to decorate the sanctuary this Saturday. So it's a small group of people, but we'll get it done before Advent Sunday, the first Sunday of Advent, I think is when people will expect to see that done. I know Harold sent me something today that he said is probably worship or outreach and that I should know about it. And I apologize, I really haven't had a chance to look at it. And please do let me know if there's something I need to do. So that's my only thing. Just tell me what you need me to do. Happy to do it. Other than that, I don't really have anything. No grants, no motions.
We decided one thing, that the memorial fund this year, the money will not go to the benevolent fund.
You mean the Christmas Eve offering?
That's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah, we're all tired.
I think we need a motion for that as well.
We need
Where's
to
it gonna
decide
go?
where it's going.
Uh-huh.
So wait, is that, sorry, is that because we're
that's-
going to use it for TCF or is that a
No,
decision?
So the benevolent fund is money that we have that the ministers can give just as discretionary funds to people who might need it. And
Right, in the
Christmas Eve
congregation.
offering- Yeah, the Christmas Eve offering usually goes to that fund. But we have over 5,000 in that fund right now, and it's not really needed. So we need to decide where else we might want to where else the Christmas Eve offering might go.
Right. Okay.
And that general.
And in the old days, I always thought we gave everything to the Salvation Army. My mother said, because they know what to do with it.
Okay.
That's what they used to say. Hey, we gave it to Salvation Army because they know what to do with that stuff.
That may have been the case at some point, but for 15 years at least, it's been going to the benevolent fund.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, she's
or
been
unless
dead
we
for
have
15
voted-
years. Thanks for reminding me, Judy.
Unless we have voted for it to go elsewhere.
Yes.
I think
So-
in that spirit, we would consider something like Kerr Street. That's maybe a little
Yeah.
closer aligned, but in that same spirit. So that would be an option. Or you could do Mission and Service Fund. If that relieved our concern about lower givings there. But something to be said for just congregation too.
I'd be in favor of the food bank or Kerr Street Mission.
Yeah,
In
That
your
would be
packet,
mine.
sometimes we do 50-50, so we could decide to do both.
Sure.
so you're thinking fair share? And Kerr Street.
Fair share and Kerr Street. I mean, that doesn't that sound
That
like what
works.
we're talking about?
Sounds
Yeah.
appropriate.
Sounds like we know what to do with it. There we go.
All right, well, I'm the chair, so I can't make a motion to do anything, so.
Okay, so I'll
And
move that-
Allison made the motion.
Oh, Allison made the motion?
I did not make a motion, but I can.
Yeah. you made the motion.
I make a motion to donate 50% of our
Christmas
offerings.
Eve offering.
Christmas Eve offerings to Fair Share, Food Share,
Yeah, fair share.
Fair
and
share.
the other 50% to Kerr Street Ministries.
I second that.
Seconded by Judy. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Oh, am I allowed to vote? I don't even know.
Yes.
Yeah, of course you are. I'm not. These two are. You can't see these two, but I know where they are. Okay. Thank you, Allison. Jeff, anything to add to M&P Leadership Management Team?
No.
Fantastic. New business, let's table what I suggested and we'll talk about it later. Just so you know, it weighs on me. I don't feel I don't feel I'm doing what I should be doing.
Neither do
You're
I.
Running the meetings and somebody has to do that. So you're doing something that is of value.
Okay,
So
anyhow, we'll talk about it next time because I want to go home and I'm already home as much as you guys want to go home.
You want to make it to your food before it's stone cold.
That's right.
It's 9:30,
Um,
it's stone cold.
yeah,
Any new business? Say, at your peril, say yes.
I have one question.
Oh, here she goes.
Dave said they're ready to go now. Like when we have that
We're
proposal,
not.
we want it, do we want to approve it as soon as we're ready? Or do we want to wait until our next meeting, whenever that might be?
Don't we
I-
need to
I'm-
talk to the congregation?
No, but I got to be honest with you, between now and January, I'm not ready to take on
Yeah.
anything new.
Right, but do we want to have do we want to get the thing approved? Like, I'm not saying do the work, but get the thing approved so that when January comes, we can start.
Oh, so approve it before, but start in January?
Yeah.
Hmm. I mean, what is our timeline? I mean, I know Judy just gave a very dire financial statement, like real terms. like
Last
how
table
many
talks, we were
more?
given a year and a half.
A year and a half.
what?
Weren't
I
we?
think that was me. Judy corrected me.
Oh, okay.
How much longer can we sort of keep
Probably
limping along?
3.
Great.
I feel as though is if we have a plan and something is happening, we could borrow money.
Mm,
Do
If we
want
don't
to?
have a plan and we just have our budget, they aren't going to be happy. They would not, in all likelihood, lend us anything.
They being the bank.
The bank, yeah. So like, if you look at this, we're $100,000 short a year.
Like,
So-
how are we paying for like electricity? How are we keeping the lights on at the moment, I guess?
Well, we're still bringing in, what is our income? Our income is still $311,000. So we are keeping the lights on and we are paying people. We're not doing anything we don't have to do. And
I guess I just thought it would be helpful to work on this proposal, change it, maybe we want it, get it turned into them
Yes.
and
yeah.
get it done before.
I
the-
think it makes sense to do that. But I wonder if it would make sense to do that and then in January we like hit the ground running and I just think between now and Christmas, well, I
Yeah.
know, like I'm leaving on, this weekend to fly out for work. I just feel like I don't have the bandwidth to think about that. And I'd like to be part of the process too.
No, I agree,
with-
Alex, on that. None of us have
So-
time.
Yeah. But I do think you're right. We need to start, even if it doesn't end, even if we don't finish it by January, we need to start the process of looking at that contract and figuring out exactly what we want to put in there so that our needs are met, right?
Given that everybody is worn out and so on, perhaps we could meet for a hard 1 hour in December sometime and just finalize what's in that document and don't get ourselves distracted with what we're going to be and what we're going to do and everything, but simply get what we would like the contract to look like and focus ourselves. You think we could do that?
If you want
I
me to
am-
lead a meeting that will last only 1 hour and bring the gavel down.
Yep.
I have found my purpose.
Yeah. Well, I think we'd have to be very, if we could have a very focused meeting and not get, your job could be
Yeah.
to not let us get off target.
So the 6th or the 14th,
What are those?
or
Days or
the
days?
13th, right? 5th, 6th,
Oh,
6th.
they're
the
days.
13th,
Oh, they're
Tuesdays.
days.
Yeah.
Dates.
All right, hang on here. Somebody's got to open up their schedule here.
Yeah, somebody does.
Yeah.
We're in-
I can't do the 13th, but I can do the 6th.
The 6th,
I can do
I
the,
can do the 6th.
yeah. I can do the
Wait a
6th
minute
too.
here. The 6th of December.
That's in the evening, right?
Yeah,
Presumably.
I guess.
And
Yeah, I'm
I
assuming
can-
this is like a 7 o'clock thing.
I can do it if it's in the
I
evening.
can do that. Damn,
You can?
I can.
Oh, you
Oh,
can.
you can.
I
So that's
can. I'm good for
2
that.
weeks from now.
Yeah, I'm okay for that.
Okay, that's our next meeting. So that's our next meeting. I want to jump back to new business. So there's one question that asked me. I'm gonna float this out there, although Judy and I discussed it. If someone thought that they were imminently ready to die and they wanted their funeral and they wanted it at the church, does it have to be Deborah? Does it have to be Carolyn? Could it only be Carolyn? Could it be Carolyn and Deborah? Could it be Deborah and Carolyn? Could it be Carolyn and someone else? Could it be Deborah and someone else? It's
It-
at the church.
the
Where's
answer is-
funeral?
The answer is you run it by Deborah and Carolyn because we get to decide.
Right.
That's the answer.
That was kind of what I kind of said, I think this is the answer.
That's the answer.
That's the answer. Perfect.
Easy.
Just so long as we haven't sold the place.
Basically, we get first right of refusal, basically, right?
I
We'll
always
ask that
knew.
Because that's not in the contract, so to speak.
Right, that I
Technically,
always
United
knew.
Church, for United Church clergy, it's Deborah's pulpit. And
Right.
Deborah
Okay.
gets, whoever preaches from that pulpit has to run it by Deborah first.
Ah, okay.
So that's how that rule works.
Yeah.
And but she still let the
That's an
three of
answer,
us.
Harold, or,
What'd you say, Harold?
I said, and she still let the three of us do it. It was just-
That's true.
I do it
well,
again.
can't you have an
The
answer?
standards are questionable, but you hired her, so.
Okay, so we set our new meeting. The next thing I see here is adjournment.
Now it's not.
And I don't need to
40.
ask for that. I can just say we're adjourned.
All in favor.
Adjourned.
And then a benediction.
We're adjourned. benediction. That's coming from, I bet it's Carolyn.
Hey, okay, may God surround you with a gentle peace and calm as you settle into your beds and your suppers and your snacks, and go in peace, my friends. Amen.
You as well.
Amen.
Night, everyone.
Hey,
Everyone.
See you later.
Thanks,
That was a
everyone.
long, one, but I think we accomplished, we got a few things off our shoulders. So
We did.
thanks everybody for sticking with it.
All
Appreciate it.
right. All right.
Bye.
Bye.